I gave everything I had to my daughter. She let her in-laws use my room. Do you know the people who claim that being a mother entails love without conditions? That it should be unselfish, unending, and gratitude-free? That's what I thought. Too long. Hannah is my name. Up until recently, I believed that I was just being a good mother. I am 68 years old and retired. A loyal one. The type of person who consistently sends her daughter $5,000 each month. The type of person who once sacrificed her retirement funds to help her child purchase a home. The type that bakes bourbon cookies by the tin and knits holiday jumpers by hand. The type who ultimately learned that there wasn't enough room for her around Christmas. Yes, that sort. It began modestly, just like most betrayals. My only daughter, Amy, resides in Boston with her spouse, Todd. I understand that it's costly. Daycare, groceries, rent, and bills. I wanted to assist them because they were always overburdened. So I did. Silently, regularly. The costs skyrocketed with the birth of my grandson, Mason. I didn't hold off till they inquired. I recently began sending $5,000 every month. My pension wasn't simple, but I made it work. Where I could, I made cuts, ceased changing shoes as they became worn out, discovered how to eat simply. And like clockwork, Amy would send me a thank you emoji each month. Not always. I didn't care, though. They were my relatives, my daughter, my grandson. Was there anything else I could do? Allow them to drown? I so decided to spend Christmas at their house this year. I began preparing 2 weeks in advance. Gifts were carefully wrapped. Mason received a comfortable dinosaur sweater. Amy had been eyeing a cashmere scarf in a boutique last fall, and now she was finally acquiring it. Todd? Oregon sent in specialty coffee beans. Even a bottle of homegrown bourbon was put in. I hoped that would make you smile. I pictured us in their cozy townhouse, laughing. Amy, as usual, flying around me in the kitchen. Another of Todd's cheesy jokes. In a sea of wrapping paper, Mason is tearing into gifts. The house in town, that I assisted them in purchasing. At the time, they were unable to pay the down payment. I used up the most of what I had left. To seal the deal, I even borrowed from my brother. When they obtained the keys, Amy started crying. Told me, "Mom, this is also your home." The window-facing bedroom? Always yours. Todd murmured something encouraging as he nodded next to her. Those remarks were like a lifeline to me. My phone rang 3 days prior to my scheduled departure. Amy was the one. She said softly, hesitant, as if someone were going to inform you that your dog had died. "Mom, have you purchased your ticket yet?" The first indication was that. She struck up a conversation. Went around the runway. Something gloomy, like a chill mist slowly crawling up my spine, was building in my chest. "At last," she continued, "Todd wants to talk to you." Suddenly, he was the recipient of the call. Always measured and courteous, Todd began by saying, "Hello, Hannah." Too courteous, too cautious. Then he let it fall. "It might not be the best time for you to come this Christmas." It resembled a silk-wrapped smack. I froze and blinked. "What? Has something taken place?" "No, no. My parents are coming this year. That's all. They need to rest because they are older. Light sleepers. They all require separate rooms, and there just isn't enough room for Mason, Amy, and me in one room." My heart constricted. My lungs stopped functioning correctly. Each of them requires an own space. And me? The woman who covered the cost of their roof? I offered the couch as a place to sleep, the ground, anywhere. However, he dismissed it, claimed that I wouldn't find it comfortable, that there would be noise in the living room, that this year they were hoping to relax. Translation: stay away. You would obstruct the path. He even recommended that I stay at my brother Robert's house for the holidays. Made it sound lovely, thoughtful. However, the only sound I could hear was the rustle of wrapping paper that I had packed weeks earlier, but had since rendered useless. I requested to talk to Amy once again. She said softly, broken, "Please, Mom, don't be angry. We're simply under a lot of pressure. Both of his parents are ill." In the backdrop, too? Todd cleared his throat. Only a slight sound. However, it spoke for itself. Never once did they say, "Don't come." They didn't have to, though. It was obvious. They had chosen a side. I wasn't on it either. After hanging up, I looked at my bags, the presents, the cookie tin, meticulously packed. Now everything seems absurd, like a rotten joke. I spent a lot of time sitting on the edge of my bed, and something inside of me began to break in that silence. There was no space for me, they replied. However, there had been space when they required a down payment. When I roamed the floor all night with a crying newborn, there had been space for them to sleep. Every month, when $5,000 magically appeared in Amy's account, there had been space. Right now, all of a sudden, no space. I didn't get much sleep that night. I messaged Todd's niece, Lily, who I hardly knew, at the break of day. Just banter, informal. Hey, Lily, are you aware of Todd's parents' Christmas plans? I considered asking them to come over if they're available. She responded 30 minutes later. Oh, they can't wait to visit Amy and Todd for Christmas. The entire family is gathering before departing for Hawaii following the holidays. Hawaii. What a waste of the elderly couple in need of quiet rest. They were dishonest. They had no intention of having me there. Additionally, that something inside of me broke at that very moment. My money is always welcome, but not for me. I refrained from crying, neither that evening nor the following morning, when I prepared instant oatmeal and gazed at the chilly cup of tea I had neglected to sip. I simply went about my day as if I had woken up to see my house gone. You're still standing, in a sense, but nothing feels like a place to call home. I couldn't get Lily's text out of my brain. Super excited to spend Christmas at Amy and Todd's. Whole families getting together before Hawaii. All of a sudden, everything made sense. The uncomfortable phone pauses. Every time I proposed going, they said, maybe next time. Todd would constantly bring up his parents as if they were honored guests, while I was just background noise. They didn't want a grandmother who knew how to make casseroles and knit sweaters. A silent benefactor was what they desired. An ATM that is human and doesn't charge emotional overdraft fees. Later, the rage surfaced. It burns slowly, neither loudly nor explosively, similar to a stove that someone neglected to switch off. And I came to the realization that made my stomach turn. They didn't simply ignore me. They took advantage of me. The initial payment, the credit card emergency payout, the recently installed roof, the landscape, Mason's ballet lessons. For 3 years, the monthly transfer would be $5,000 each month. That amounts to $180,000. I checked, so I know. I hadn't opened my banking app without intending to send money out in years. All I did was look at the numbers. Then I asked myself, for the first time in ages, what would happen if I stopped? I didn't immediately cancel the transfer. That's not how I'm built. I wanted to make sure that my reaction wasn't motivated by pettiness. I did not want retaliation. Clarity is what I sought. So I took a simple action. I grabbed my phone and dialed Amy. Her voice was startled. Hi, Mom. What is going on? I said. I just wanted to check in. Verify Mason's enjoyment of the dinosaur sweater. Quiet. Next. Oh, I see. Gifts have not yet been unwrapped. Been quite busy. The 27th was the date. I answered in a bland voice. I see. Well, hopefully it works. I took the measurements from the jacket I got him last autumn. Oh, yes. I'm sure it's fantastic. She had a strange voice, close, as if she were anticipating something. I went on to ask how the planning in Hawaii was progressing. Lily told me it was shortly after New Year's, more quiet. Did she say that to you? She did. Well, yes. It was planned months earlier by Todd's parents. We didn't anticipate that you would wish to go so far. I took a while to respond. Then, as composed as ever, I said, Amy, do you think I'm dumb? She gasped. Only a little. I know, of course not, Mom said. I said, I gave you everything I had. And for Christmas, you couldn't even get me a couch. That's not how it is. That's exactly how it is. I ended the call. Not angry, just for the sake of finality, since her voice had conveyed it to me. That little change. Not remorse. Not regret. Shame. She didn't feel bad about what she had done. She apologized for my knowing. I gave the bank a call 2 days later. The automatic transfers were stopped. Tidy. Easy. I was asked if I wanted to leave a note along with the cancellation. by the woman on the phone. No, I replied. Let the quiet do the talking. A week passed. Nothing. No phone calls. Don't text. Simply be silent. Then, one morning, my phone displayed the following message: Amy, hey, is there any news on the bank? The monthly payment was not received. That was it. No, how are you? No, you were missed at Christmas. A brief check-in regarding the offline ATM. I didn't answer. 2 hours later, she checked in again. We completely understand if you're struggling. Simply inform us. I laughed at that one. If I'm struggling? The only thing I'm struggling with, sweetie, is acknowledging that I ever allowed you to talk to me in such a manner while still making your mortgage payments. She called the following day. I didn't respond. Her voicemail was left. Please, Mom, could we simply have a conversation? Mason has inquired about you. Everyone here misses you. I'm not sure what's happening, but we can figure it out. Everyone here misses you, correct? Unless it's Christmas. Even though we all had a 5-bedroom mansion and first-class tickets to Oahu, they abruptly didn't have place for me. Before I removed that voicemail, it remained there for 2 more days. I could be accused of being cruel, harsh, unforgiving. However, this is what I've discovered. Unrestrained love turns into money. People forget you were ever a person once they start spending you. I continued to love Amy. I won't. However, I no longer allowed that love to cost me. I resumed preparing meals for myself, not just food from the microwave, real food, with garlic, butter, and seasonings. I began going for morning walks. Enrolled in a class on painting. I spent 3 hours staring at the water as if it owed me answers after taking a bus to the seaside. I gradually began to feel like a human again, not helpful, not required, only me. I was needed by them, right up till I needed room. 12 days passed in silence. Amy didn't say anything for a full 12 days. Don't text, no phone calls. No, have you received my message? Or may we speak? Nothing. Perhaps that was the most painful thing. Not the denial, not even Christmas. It was the ease with which she could vanish once the money ceased. People believe that heartbreak is noisy, screaming. Broken picture frames. Doors were slammed. However, mine sounded more like the nighttime hum of a dishwasher. The kettle is clicking. In the cold, my neighbor's dog is barking. The kind of silence that envelops you like a coat you didn't realize you were wearing, one that is warm, heavy, and unavoidable. I kept saying to myself, she'll call. She will say she's sorry. She will clarify. But it became more apparent with each day that went by without a word. Amy wasn't holding back on making any repairs. She waited until I snapped. She assumed I would give in, that Mason would be torely missed, that I would have guilt, that maybe I overreacted when I thought back to the years I rocked her to sleep while her father worked late shifts. She was unaware, as were none of them, that I had already broken. Not right now, long ago. However, I wasn't rebuilding myself for the comfort of another person this time. I received a card in the mail during the second week of stillness. Just the last name of the family in neat, recognizable handwriting, with no return address. I opened it slowly and carefully, like if remorse were booby-trapping it. There was a picture of Mason inside, a sketch in hand. 3 stick figures, a little, a medium, and a tall one. The following is scribbled in blue crayon in the corner. Nana is missed. Amy didn't leave a note. Don't apologize. No recognition. Only the child. A sacrifice for peace. And it was successful, for roughly 10 minutes. Then I understood her actions. She refused to speak with me. My grandson was the emotional bait she was trying to exploit. I didn't remove the picture. I'm not a stone person. I placed it on my refrigerator. I didn't call, though. Margaret, a neighbor I used to walk with before my knees started singing every time I reached mile 3, was there when I ran into her at the post office a few days later. She is quick-witted, talkative, and never stops. Halfway through sealing her mail, she remarked nonchalantly, "Haven't seen you at Amy's lately." I gave a headshake, taking a rest. Oh, at the market, I happened to run into her. Stated that they are currently considering renting out the guest room. Extra money, she said. I blinked. The visitor room? Indeed. She, not me, stated that they must tighten things up now that your assistance is gone. Too astonished to say anything, I nodded. My room was being rented by them. I will always have the one she once vowed to have. She claimed that the yellow was too cold, so I painted it by hand 2 summers ago, the one where I stored my books, a blanket. On my shoulder was a framed picture of Mason dozing off, lost, for rental use. I poured a glass of cheap, dry wine that evening and waited on the porch till nightfall. I refrained from crying. I merely sat there. I could feel the weight of it all. She hadn't simply canceled my Christmas invitation. I had been erased by her, not too loudly, not in a mean way, just informally. As if the blueprint had never included me. As if I were an unnecessary support beam, now that the house was tall enough to stand alone. I did something I hadn't done in years the following morning. I made a travel reservation. Not to Boston, to Colorado. Over the past 10 years, I had received 12 invitations to go out from my cousin June. Every time, I answered no. Too occupied. Too far away. Amy and the baby are involved in too much. Too many obligations. Now, though, I had room now, and I made the decision to fill it with myself at last. It was a rough flight. My knees resented it. It was a terrible layover. However, I sensed a change as soon as I saw the mountains. Like a lung that has been keeping its air for years finally lets it out. Wearing hiking boots and a puff jacket, June greeted me at the airport with a smile that made us look like we were 12 again. "You appear lighter," she remarked. I chuckled. I left a few things behind. Carry on or emotional? Both. We took a short hike. Not that far. Only enough to make my legs know they were there. At a little cafe with laminated menus and residents who inquired as to whether I was just visiting or escaping, we ate heated soup. I replied to them, both. I meant it too. I sent Mason a postcard from a store that sells gifts. On it, draw a small moose, claimed to have missed him. I told him that his drawing made me proud. Amy wasn't mentioned, made no mention of it. Simply love, straightforward, sincere, no conditions. I was uncertain if she would give it to him. Still, I mailed it. He was still a child, regardless of anything else transpired between me and my daughter. Still not guilty. I also had no intention of punishing him for her decisions. Amy called 2 days later. I allowed it to ring, but then again, and once more. I answered the third call. "Hello, Mom." She spoke in a little voice, as if she had done something she didn't want to acknowledge. When she was 5 years old, I noticed the postcard. Mason grinned broadly. He requested that I give him a call. I remained silent. "Are you all right?" I inhaled deeply, gazed at the mountain range, then stated, "I have no idea who I am. However, I can hear my own thoughts here." She remained silent for a while. "Next, can we have a conversation? Talk like that?" And I added, "Not just yet. However, perhaps soon." And she didn't push, for once. She finally noticed the mess when I took a step back. I spent more time in Colorado than I had anticipated. I initially assured myself that it would only take a week, no more than 10 days. After that, though, I began to sleep better, more laughter, consuming food without looking at my phone. Every time a text message arrived, my shoulders ceased to crawl up to my ears. So I stayed. I awoke slowly. I did some painting, walked a few small paths. Instead of listening to podcasts, I listened to birds. I got more flour on my face than in the bowl when June showed me how to make bread that wasn't straight out of a freezer bag. I didn't write anything about it. I didn't send any images. Amy and I didn't check in. I simply existed. When someone is accustomed to you circling their lives, it turns out that the scariest thing you can do is to quit doing so. Amy sent a lengthy email after about 2 weeks. Not an SMS message. No call. A real email. I've had a lot on my mind regarding Christmas. Almost anything. I'm aware that I handled it poorly. Todd did too, I'm sure. It wasn't until you were gone that I realized how much I depended on you. She continued talking about the mayhem. How Mason kept asking when Nana would arrive, and how her in-laws barely lifted a finger. Because Todd's dad couldn't sleep with traffic noise and relocated to the couch nevertheless, the guest room remained largely unoccupied. She claimed to have been worn out. I'm overwhelmed, caught between maintaining one's sanity and attempting to maintain harmony. She acknowledged that she had locked me off, even if she hadn't intended to. The line that landed the hardest came next. I think a part of me thought that no matter how I treated you, you would always be there. It was there, the reality. Not mean, simply nude. She believed that I was here to stay. A fixture for the background, similar to a porch light or lamp. Something that only becomes apparent after it is removed. I didn't respond. Not because I was emotionless, but because I didn't feel obligated for the first time in years. It was also novel. Todd sent the next message. Indeed, Todd. A voicemail was left. I can still recall every word. Hello, Hannah. I am aware that we haven't always agreed. It's likely that I haven't always expressed gratitude in the appropriate manner. I'd like to possess that. You have greatly benefited our family. Really, more than I ever deserved. I'd love to discuss if you're open to it. Like your son-in-law, no. As someone who is aware that he made several mistakes, that was unexpected. Not from him. Not from the man who, just before taking his parents to Hawaii in first class, told me that having me around during the holidays would be too much. But I could detect that shift even in his voice. Oh, that moment. The knowledge that all the hubbub in their lives no longer felt like love when the silent donor they had once taken for granted left. Just sounds. June received the voicemail, which I sent. She responded to the text. That's either progress or fear. Interesting in any case. In the meantime, I was still waking up in a little guest room with an elderly dog that snored louder than a lawnmower and a lavender-scented comforter. And I felt all right, not cured, not complete, but sturdy, like a tree that had finally turned back to the light after bending toward someone else's weather. Then something changed. Amy gave another call. This time, I responded. She said softly. It's calm, not wobbly. Sincere. I began going to therapy. I blinked. You did? Indeed. I've only attended 2 sessions so far. However, it's difficult. I didn't believe I required it. Yes, I do. For a while, we sat in silence. You were correct, she affirmed. Quite a bit. I gave you too much to bear, too long. I said. I allowed myself. You can't be used until you continually saying yes, which is the reality that nobody likes to acknowledge. She apologized for giving you the impression that you were unimportant. That was it. No exclusions. No justifications. Not because I didn't mean to, but because I was stressed and you know how Todd is. Simply say, I apologize. I didn't lose it. I refrained from crying. All I did was breathe. Thank you, they said. We spoke for 10 more minutes. Nothing hefty. Mason was drawing dinosaurs once more, she informed me, inquired as to what I had been painting. When I informed her that I had set off the smoke alarm because I had burned the first loaf of bread so badly, she laughed. It seemed too human. Mother-daughter, no. Giver-recipient, no. 2 ladies seeking to find a middle ground while unlearning traditional roles. I wasn't repaired when we hung up. However, I felt noticed. And sometimes that's sufficient. A package showed up at June's house a few days later. Not a word. No name. Only a hand-knit scarf in the same shade of blue. I'd mentioned years ago, and a box of bourbon biscuits. I grinned. Keep quiet. Easy. Not much fanfare. That is the beginning of mending. Sacrifice is not what love is about. Balance is key. In early April, I returned home. My knees were beginning to suffer more than normal as the snow in Colorado melted and turned the sidewalks muddy. June gave me a strong embrace at the airport, called me lighter once more. Perhaps she was correct. When I returned home, my tiny abode was just as I had left it, quiet, creaking, and smelling somewhat of old books and cinnamon. I gave the plants some water. Slowly unpack. The fresh scarf was hung on the coat hook. Don't handle the bourbon cookie tin straight immediately. Instead, place it on the kitchen shelf. It's not necessary to open everything at once. The day I landed, Amy didn't call. A week passed while she waited, and I was grateful for that, because this time, the silence was one of respect rather than isolation. For once, she gave me the space I needed because she knew I needed it. Her voice was calm when she eventually called, soft as ever, but strangely stronger. Mom, even if it's not required, would you think about coming over soon? Mason continually asking Nana whether she would like to see his drawings of dinosaurs in real. I stopped. Is the guest room still rented out? Was the next question. She chuckled softly. No, no more leasing. Now it's just a room, if you desire it at all. After 3 weeks, I was outside their home carrying a grocery bag and a small suitcase. I only brought what I would need for the weekend. No presents, no money, only me. The door was opened by Amy. Her apron was dusty with flour, and her hair was pushed back. I detected the scent of actual cookies. Made at home. Honest, yet a little burned. She added, You came, as if she hadn't been sure I would. I took over. Yes, I did. Mason stormed down the corridor, holding a pile of drawings as if they were precious works of art. Nana! I sketched a laser-eyed T-Rex. To meet him, I knelt. That is precisely what paleontology lacked. We sat at the kitchen table for dinner. Only the three of us. No major production. No pressure that goes unnoticed. Todd wasn't home, allegedly for work, and to be honest, I didn't mind. Amy brewed 2 mugs of tea after Mason went to bed, and we sat with blankets on the back porch. She remarked, You look good, Mom. I feel better now. Without glancing at me, she continued, I'm trying, but it's slow. I still find myself expecting you to simply be there. Make things right. Take things in. I'm attempting to unlearn it. I took a drink of my tea. She remarked, It's not about you doing everything for me anymore. It's about just showing up, without requiring you to shrink. I listened to her words. Don't hurry. That's all I ever wanted, he added. I wasn't asked to move in by her. Didn't mention money. Did not imply favors. She simply asked whether I wanted to come more frequently. If I were to attend Mason's spring production. She missed hearing my voice. Not because she needed anything, but if we could converse. Yes, I said. Has limits. With equilibrium. This time, we both knew that I wouldn't be the only one keeping the whole thing up. Mason gave me a fresh drawing the following morning before I departed. A family of stick figure dinosaurs. Amy, him, and me. Todd, blurry but included, off to the side. And in the wonky crayon in the corner, time spent together equals love, as well as cookies. I gave him a big hug and grinned. I pinned the drawing on my refrigerator when I got home, next to the Christmas picture of him. Amy never imagined that I would see it. The hurt, the disappointment, the years I sacrificed without expecting anything in return, it's all still there. I don't act like it never happened. However, I no longer wear it in the same manner. Because until you're empty, love won't give. It appears in its entirety. Additionally, you can choose to meet folks where you are or not. I continue to use my banking app. The number I used to send out each month is still visible. I look at it now, though, and I think, that's mine. I am that. I can use that to construct something just for me. And perhaps I will in the future.